Welcome to the International Black Summit interview podcast series. This is a monthly podcast session where we interview current and past facilitators and participants of the International Black Summit. So for those of you who are not familiar with us, the International Black Summit's purpose is to provide an opportunity for participants to bring into being their vision for the Black community and the world. The organization was created in October 1991, and since then we've been engaging in a conversation supporting our individual and community empowerment so that we can create the visions that we have for ourselves, our families, our communities, and the world. So welcome. We're glad you're with us tonight. So my name is Grace Lawrence, and with me,
Glenn Greenidge.
So tonight, this month, we're going to be interviewing Mwangaza Michael-Bandele. Mwangaza has been a facilitator of the International Black Summit for many years, and I'm just going to read her biography to find out. She's a fascinating woman. So let me just read this. I think we're going to have a fantastic conversation tonight, really give an opportunity to get a flavor of the International Black Summit, our conversation, our tools, and our work. So Dr. Mwangaza Michael-Bandele is a veteran educator, facilitator, and higher education administrator, and is an executive leader and elite performance strategist who supports individuals and organizations with accomplishing what they envision. While senior director at a National Higher Education Association for 16 years, she honed executive and organizational leadership skills directing multi-million-dollar education initiatives. With a terminal degree in history, Dr. Michael-Bandele uses skills of the historian's craft to track and leverage patterns that inform strategic winning. Dr. Michael-Bandele specializes in leveraging historical knowledge of African-American achievement to teach heightened self-regard and self-accountability. She is currently CEO of the Blacknificent Life Digital Learning Complex, where people of African descent learn how great they already are and how to become even greater. Dr. Michael-Bandele enjoys nothing more than activating individual and organizational strengths, often undistinguished. As a mother, grandmother, and community resource, she is honored to bring maternal wisdom and community regard to work that celebrates the infinite capacity of every human being. So thank you. We welcome Michael-Bandele, Dr. Michael-Bandele with us this evening. Mwangaza, if you could join us now so that we have an opportunity to talk with you. We really are looking forward to exploring with you your experience with the International Black Summit and how you use the tools and distinctions of the summit in your life and in your career, in your family, in your community, and in all aspects of life. So if you could join us right now by turning on your, there you are. Yes. Welcome.
Welcome.
How are people doing this evening?
Good.
Well, good.
You know, what I love about these is that we always find out something new about you. Now, I didn't know that you were a grandmother. So congratulations, okay?
I got a 13-year-old, 6'2", 200-pound boy.
Wow.
Yes, who I am loving more than I ever thought one could love, quite frankly. So yes.
Beautiful.
Excellent.
Y'all doing all right?
Good. We're doing really well. That's
how my mama raised me. You got to check in with people.
Okay, absolutely.
Conversation. I can wait. I can hardly wait for it.
Well, why don't we go ahead and get started with how did you first get introduced to the International Black Summit? What was your first experience?
You know, I was introduced to the International Black Summit. I was sitting in a landmark forum and just sitting there, having that experience, seeing the value, seeing the deep value, quite frankly, and saying to myself, damn, I got to put one more thing on my list that I got to do, because we got to bring this kind of transformational conversation to our community, to Black communities, right? And I met Benita. I don't know if I met her there, if I knew her prior. I think I met her there. I can't remember Benita's last name. Young Benita, I guess now
Walker, that would be Walker.
Yes, Benita Walker. She was there, and she kept saying to me, "You like this? Oh, you know, there's Black folks doing something kind of like this." I was like, and she told me the name, International Black Summit, and I thought she was talking about another organization. I said, "Yeah, I know about them, but they're not doing this." And by the time we finished, over the course of the several days, she made me aware that no, it wasn't the organization that I thought it was, but it was something quite unique to me. And I told Benita, I said, "Listen, wherever this was about 4 weeks before the Brazil summit."
Oh, okay.
And
Almost 20 years ago.
yeah. And so I was like, I remember hurriedly on a break trying to find out how could I make it happen? Could I take off from, I was trying to, and I wasn't able to do it in just 4 weeks, with 4 weeks notice. And I said to her, "I'll be at the next one. Matter of fact, when are you all coming together again?" And she said, "Well, we don't come together again until October meeting." I said, "October? Y'all gonna meet in October? Where y'all gonna meet?" She said, "Atlanta." I said, "I'll be there." And I just came all up in there uninvited, and just been doing the summit since then. It was such a compelling invitation. I mean, when you understand what occurs in the International Black Summit, when you really understand that this is a vehicle by which you can garner the wherewithal for developing yourself, for readying yourself for whatever you want. I mean, who cannot be at that location at the appointed time? So that was my first introduction to the International Black Summit.
It's interesting. I think you're probably the first person that we've interviewed so far whose first interaction was not an annual summit event. Maybe not. I think maybe Adrienne Cadet, but certainly you're the first person whose first interaction was the October meeting. That's a little, and that you just, invited yourself and came. I think that's beautiful because it's such a welcoming space.
Well, that's what they told me when I arrived. They're like, "Who are you?" And I had the nerve, to bring my sister, right?
Yes, I remember that.
Bro, you remember, Glenn?
Yeah, matter of fact, I think I greeted you at the door.
You may have. You very well may have. I just remember you were taking care of everybody because that was your space.
Yeah.
But at that time, I'm like, they gonna know me today. They gonna know me today because this is something that I know is going to be as much mine as it is those persons who are already there. And indeed it was. Again, when you really think about what the International Black Summit offers, who cannot be there? If you're trying to do something more or better, big or small in your life, there's no other place that I am aware, certainly that I was aware of at that time on the planet, that specializes in making sure Black folks have a place to pause, collect ourselves, consider our lives, envision our lives, like without limit. Hold your hand, walk you there, have a good time in the process. Just sacred, just say, y'all gonna have to stop me because coming to
well, I actually have a question for you, and that's regarding the declaration. Had you been introduced to the declaration of the International Black Summit before? Oh, interesting.
I had no, and when I was, again, it's like it deepened my understanding that this was a marriage already done, right? Except, I have to tell you this, except for that the first line, in the first line, it says it's nothing to do except be.
Yes.
Wait a minute, hold on now, wait a minute, nothing to do except be. So here I am listening newly to the declaration. And those of us who have been around, introduced to the summit, that there's a little tweaking of language. There's not quite the same translation of English words, right, in our space. I said, wait a minute. These new Negroes up here talking about ain't nothing to do. all the things that we got to, you know, have happen for ourselves, all the uplift that's awaiting our time, our attention, nothing to do except be. And it took me maybe 2 years to really get it. Like, yes, yeah, there's nothing to do except be. And in my mind, the translation is to be fully who you are, to be all that's already in you, to manifest that, to respond to the calling of your heart, to really engage your passions. That's what there is to be. So when we be that, and we're supported and encouraged to be that through the International Black Summit, when we be in that way, oh, we rocking. That's exactly right. Because every time we engage, there's more. There's the more that we are invited to summon, to conjure, and to be.
Well, you know, I think this is a great opportunity for us to actually share the declaration of the International Black Summit right now for anyone who might not be familiar with it. And this is something that you can see anytime, read anytime on our website. So I'm just going to share that page from our website right now. So for those who are watching on YouTube, you'll be able to see this on your screens. And for those who are listening through a podcast platform, you can go to the website anytime. And there's a page called Our Declaration, and you'll see this there.
And let me add that the declaration was put together at the first summit, actually from Saturday overnight to Sunday, and was presented Sunday morning to the body. And I think there were maybe 2 minor wordsmithing that took place, but this document was actually created by people who came together on the first summit and had an idea of why they were there, but really were there inside of the conversation of empowerment and to make this transformational technology available. Mwangaza, Dr. Mwangaza talked a little bit about the declaration and the summit as a space to participate in. So let's go ahead and I'll read the declaration so that everybody can get a real sense of what the spirit and really what was available. So this is the declaration of the International Black Summit. We declare ourselves, our community, and all communities whole and complete. And this is the part she was talking about. There is nothing to do except be. We assert that we are responsible for generating community as possibility and distinction. We listen for and grant being to the possibility and creation of unpredictable results. Our conversation of, about, and for those of African descent is one of power, self-generation, abundance, responsibility, unity, and integrity with the possibility of being. We stand for the expression of our spirituality, ending the murders of our men, women, and children, building economies responsible for funding our community, maintaining wellness of being in our bodies, providing human services, establishing nurturing relationships, altering the conversation of who we are in the media, empowering our youth. We declare that our community manifests itself in the world as a contribution in the transformation of the universe. Atlanta, Georgia, October 7th, 1991. And so what we normally do is we'll say today's date, and then we take a moment of silence to just clear the space, because this is what we do to begin and end any of the International Black Summit events. So you got a taste of this declaration, and as Mwangaza pointed to, there gets established a relationship or a resistance or something that you see or that you cause to be written in that declaration. And the opportunity is really to notice it, be with it, and then transform whatever that is, that resistance, to allow you to be present to. Because all of the work that we do is about being present, having you be present. So
Thank you, Glenn.
you, Jackie Gray.
Thank you. You know, it's great, Mwangaza, for you leading us right into that conversation around the declaration. And when you talked about the point, there's nothing to do except be, and how many people initially interact with that notion is, what do you mean there's nothing for me to do? I've got to get up. I have things to do. I have places to be. I can't just lie in my bed all day, you know. But what you talked about in terms of being and nothing to do except be doesn't mean that there isn't action, right? But looking at being and allowing yourself to be your deepest, fullest self will then promote your action from the deepest source of yourself. So say a little bit more about how that showed up for you.
Well, I was just going to add to what you said. It's like it really does call for you to act on your higher being. You know, it's not like an external thing, like over there, but to be the thing, so that you can have, so that you will do and have those things that you choose. And so, you know, being able to work that through your mind, to feel it, to talk to other people and check in and just have partners in the process of exploring that possibility for yourself newly, what it means to be, is in and of itself just a grand space to find oneself. It's a nurturing space. This is what you get when you come to the summit. This is what you get when you're in the facilitator body. It's like planting a seed in fertile soil, right? The seed has everything. That little acorn is that oak tree unrealized, and will become that oak tree when and only when it's placed in the right environment, that nurturing, loving environment. And that's what occurs. So you get to hang out in these kinds of conversations where you say, really? Wow, never thought of it, never looked at it like that. You're being invited to look at things from different perspectives over and over again, which allows you to discover your own, right? Your own perspective. It's like trying on different kinds of clothing. And then when you understand, this is a perfect fit for me, you get to have it and wear it and let that thing work on you, because here we have that seed finding its environment. Endless possibilities, endless.
So you said that your first exposure to the International Black Summit in person was coming to that first meeting, the October meeting, the annual. I mean, we have meetings throughout the year, but there's a year-end meeting that happens in October each year. And so what was your experience that weekend? You came, like, if you were to describe, you know, how you felt when you left, what might have shown up for you during that meeting, what was it like for you?
It was an exploration for me, because I didn't know. I didn't know y'all, Jack. I didn't know y'all, Glenn. I didn't know. Folks just said, and actually they it took some time, literally hours, for them to decide what they were going to do with us. It was like, are we supposed to? You supposed to attend a summit before you come? So there was that conversation, and for me, it was like, okay, whatever I need to do, whoever I need to be, whatever questions I need to answer, whatever money I need to pay, it's not a problem. Let's flow with it, because these are my people.
Now, if I remember correctly, you were coming on that Friday to be a facilitator for this conversation, you and your sister. Is that correct? Now, this is an unseen, hadn't been to an annual event, this is a first event, but you and your sister were clear and were a demand to be included in this conversation. So it wasn't like, show up and, oh, we can't do this. All right, see y'all later. No. It was like, no. Well, this is what we want to do. And what do you need to do to have us be here?
Absolutely. It's let me, like they say, put it on the shelf so everybody can get this. When you meet that special man or that special woman, and you know what you want, you know what you need, you know what you prayed for. And everything I saw on the website, every information that I received about the International Black Summit checked off another box, right? Oh, I looked at where you had been, you were international, you've been to Africa, I'm an Africa traveler. It was like, oh my God. So I actually had several weeks between the time I learned your name and the time I met you. And in between, I'm looking at, these sources of information. I'm talking to Benita. By the way, Benita ended up becoming my administrative support person. I hired her, okay?
Oh, did you? Okay.
I did. She worked.
Smart move. She's excellent.
Yeah, she's a sweetheart at that higher ed association. She worked there on my team for quite a number of years. But so by the time I got to Atlanta, I was doing like this. I was like, oh, this is gonna be all right? And it was. So there was no hesitation. It was just a matter of the more time that I spend, the more certain I will become, and let's get the party started. It had to do with trusting what I knew about the International Black Summit, but it also had to do with trusting myself. I knew enough to know that if it don't work, it don't work. But it was so inviting. I mean, my God, like I said, when you understand, and I would just ask anyone who might listen to this interview at whatever appointed time, when you realize there is a place on this planet made just for you, made to hold your heart, hold your hand, to hold your head, to honor you as a person of African descent, who is functioning solely so that you can rise, who will not knock on that door? Who? Right. So that was it. It was like easy breezy for me. I was excited.
One of the things that we say is that it will call to you. When you listen to the declaration or you hear about the summit, for those people who are meant to be in that room, it will call to you. And that whole conversation where we talk about there's nothing to do except being from that depth of who you are, that depth of who you are will direct you to that room if that's where you're meant to be.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Now,
or to this Zoom.
All right. We hear a lot today about people doing the work. That's a heightened conversation today. You hear people all the time talking about, you need to do some work. I've done my work. And I often wonder, what did you actually do? Like, what did you actually do? And it's often spoken in a way that suggests that done that, been there, done that, right? Finished. And so I'm so glad to hear that people are acknowledging that there are some experiences one can give oneself to grow. And where you go and what you get and how you're supported and what you do with that is everything. It's everything. Because someone is hanging a shingle and calling themselves, counselor, therapist, or whatever, does not mean they're a fit. And you want to be very careful and very selective with, again, making sure who you trust your life to, who you trust your development to, is going to give you what actually helps, empowers, and works for you. And so being in the International Black Summit was that. And oh my God, don't let me talk about when I had never even seen those 5 OG facilitators at work. I had never even seen that. So OMG, once I saw the Fearless 5, oh my God, I've never experienced anything like that before or after. You get that Kat and JK and Perry and Who am I forgetting?
Robin
Robin and
and
oh,
Anthony.
that Anthony.
Crazy
that
Anthony.
Anthony. Oh my God. You get him up there at you can't do nothing but elevate when you bring yourself to that conversation. You got 5 experienced, loving, just people who, listening spirit will ready to jack you up if a jack isn't, might be helpful to you. Just regular Black folks who ain't regular at all. And so that was just, oh my God, this is again such an opportunity that you don't find every day. You don't find every other day. I don't know what else you find.
It's interesting what you shared about the 5 facilitators up at the front of the room at that first annual summit event that you attended, because one of the things that I find unique, perhaps not unique, but certainly distinctive about the International Black Summit is that there will be 3 people, 5 people, 6 people up at the front of the room facilitating the conversation. Up until that point, I had attended all kinds of sessions and, events and conversations and symposia. And there would be often in a session, one speaker, one leader, one, what I mean, up at the front of the room doing their thing. And in this experience, having multiple people up at the front of the room, the depth of conversation that becomes possible, the multi-layered lenses through which, to have a conversation seen through that many different perspectives at the same time, guiding and facilitating the conversation where the conversation itself wants to go, is a powerful, powerful experience that I haven't really experienced anywhere else. That group facilitation being facilitated by 5 masterful people up at the front of the room.
See, this is the other thing that was such a magnet for me. Like, for my formal preparation has always been the study of Black people, African American studies, African history, African diaspora and history. That's all I've ever studied. That's all my them little credentials. That's all they represent. Okay. But what this has given me is an understanding of my culture, our culture. And I can see it and recognize it, even if it's called by another name. And so when I saw this collective responsibility occurring, right, I resonated with it so much because I know that so much of traditional African governance, if you will, and social order has to do with bringing the whole together, right? We hear about Ubuntu, right, with South Africa, and that the whole truth and reconciliation momentum that began with the South Africa freedom movement, right? We are Ubuntu. I am because you are. I am because you are. You are because I am. This is old, this is ancient, this is an essential aspect of our lives. And when we get that, we're furthered because we're working together. And we do that without regard to what I might not get in the process, understanding this old African wisdom. I get whenever I give. So I said, oh my God, this like the council. This like the people that have to convene before any real major decisions are made in traditional African societies, right? And it's the same thing with that distinction alignment. I was like, wait a minute, what am I listening to? Alignment? Oh, this is a way in which, this is a distinction that we use in International Black Summit when we come to recognize how we are already aligned, how we are already on the same page and on the path to the same outcome, right? And so it calls persons who are participating in the process to not like simply agree, but to look and see and receive the possibility that what is good for one is good for all, and to look for it, to find it. It's always there. but can you find it? And so when I participated in that, I was like, look at these African people up in here. Look at this. This is our culture manifesting itself. And we don't really, I don't know that we know that, because so often we're not as familiar with these traditional African ways of being, but they're rich, they're life-giving, they're abundant in what they give back to us. And so that was the other part of what drew me further and further into the summit. I knew I was home. I knew I was home. We could talk about some other aspects. We listen for spirit, not like sometime maybe on Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Saturdays, right? It's not like something that you do sometime. It is a principle. When we train facilitators, it is a way of facilitating that is essential, to sit, pause, and listen beyond your own ears. Because we African people know that's what we do. That's what we do. I can't talk about everybody else. That's what we do. And I know we do it very well, right? There's a reading people, and then there's a reading people. There's a listening, and then there's a listening beyond. And so we call forth all of ourselves, not just our minds, but our hearts and our spirits, to manifest what it is that this person is calling for, or what we are calling for, depending on what your situation is as facilitator. So, all of that wonderful deliciousness that is African culture, you find in the space of the summit.
Yes, I think that's so true. And like you said, some not always distinguished as such,
Right.
But I will say, when you talked about the experience of home, feeling that feeling of home, I think that's a common experience for facilitators and participants. And I'll say for me, the summit has been my spirit of Wakanda. It is the spirit, watching the Black Panther movie. And when I watch the new one that's coming out, and you see the council and the engagement, I'm like, I have experienced that space. It doesn't look the same, but I've experienced that energy.
Yes.
I've experienced that collective conversation. Yes. So, and how we engage, and the whole notion of talking stick and not interrupting and allowing people to complete, all of that kind of important communication in terms of supporting the relationship, and the spirit of the community, first and foremost. So
yeah, let me jump in, and I just want to let our listeners know, if you didn't get it, the facilitators aren't reading from a book. There's no manual. They're listening the space for each other, and deal with what's in the room. So we come together, and there's something that comes up that's a collective. And so inside of that conversation, these keenly listening facilitators, and we've got facilitators at the front of the room, we've got facilitators at the back of the room also listening. So not only are the people, do you see the people in the front of the room, but you've got other people that are working and listening the conversation. And if they hear something, they'll notify, send up a note, or send up a text to the people at the front of the room. Hey, by the way, here's what I heard. Are you hearing it as well? Because it then begins to shape where the conversation is going. Listening the conversation, listening the things. The other thing that Mwangaza pointed to was distinctions. So we have the declaration, which is kind of our mantra, kind of our mandate, that's kind of what we're standing for, having happen out in the world. And then we have these distinctions. Alignment was one of the ones that she brought up. Clearing is another one that comes into space very frequently, because we want to, we have those conversations in our head, and sometimes we need to clear them out so we can actually hear what spirit is providing for us. And so between these distinctions and listening, we begin to get ourselves, and we listen for ourselves, and we hear things that we hadn't heard before, because we've got a new access point or a new frame of reference for that thing that we've been doing for 20, 30 years. and we hear it differently, and we're like, wait a minute, I don't have to do it that way. I've discovered another possibility, another way of being for myself that may be more effective, that may cause a breakthrough in my ability to get things done. So those are the kinds of things that get brought up inside of this space, inside of these African people having these conversations and connecting spiritually, mentally, and physically inside of the space. Back to you, Jackie Grace.
Well, I just wanted to pick up on the distinction alignment. You know, you mentioned the distinction, Mwangaza, and I'm curious, would you say that's your favorite distinction? You know, if so, why? If not, which distinction is your favorite?
I pondered that question after I received the written possibilities of questions. You know, and that's like, for me, it's like asking a grandmother to choose her favorite grandchild. It's for me, it's like this. It's like a contractor who's building a house. You have a set of tools, right? Distinctions are tools for my life, for our lives, right? To move you through life and whatever life will bring to you in a manner that you want and envision for yourself, right? And so the good news is that we have such an array of distinctions that I get to choose which distinction best fits what circumstance in life that I'm working through, right? So it becomes my favorite in the moment, right? It may be that, and then the other thing it does is you understand that you have many different tools, so you don't have to struggle trying to use the back of the pliers to drive a nail. You don't have to do that. There's a better tool. For instance, if you, let's say you find yourself pissed off because of whatever, okay? And your immediate reaction is anger or whatever it is, right? Whatever emotion pops up for you, right? With the distinctions as tools, handy, ready to be used at any time, I get to stop, notice, right? That's a distinction, noticing. I get to really determine which tool is best fit for this particular circumstance, right? Am I triggered? Does that mean I got some stuff I need to look at me about? It ain't even about that person, because I really ran that yellow, almost red light. I did that, right? But these tools help to guide me to really looking at what is in front of me, presenting as a challenge, and what are my options here? Because I have options. One of the things that I found among many folks is that when something occurs, we don't think we have but one option or two options. You have many options for how you're going to engage that thing. And so the distinctions are like that for me. I will tell you this though, Grace, there was some that, again, that I was like, that ain't going in my toolbox. That one right there don't make no doggone sense. The distinction, no right way to be. Listen, when I came into the summit family, the summit space, I'm listening to these people talking about no right way to be. And all my life, my mama, my daddy, everybody, okay? My sisters, my older sisters, it's like get it right. You know, you better do it right, represent the family right. You know, there's certain things that there's the right grades to get, there's the right way to look, there's the right school to go to, there's the right way to carry yourself. And they kept talking about no right way to be. You just a lie. You just a lie. That's all. Okay, so I was in that space of And then I can't even remember. I know it was a training weekend where I tried on. I can't remember the scenario, but I tried on this notion of no right way to be. And what it gave me was just a wider view of possibility. It's like, it didn't mean that it was wrong, that notion was wrong. It's an expansion lens. Like, no right way to be. Well, if I ain't gonna be right, who am I be then? Right? And is there something between right and wrong? And what is that like? What does that smell like, feel like? Is that a place to play? Can you cultivate something in that space? So that was one distinction. I was like, I know they done lost it now. I'm 99.9% in, but you know, this 1% right here, there is a right way to be. And quite frankly, I still hold that there's a right way to be. I do. It helps me to understand it's not either or. There's a right way to be. And I am open to other possibilities that you might see, know, introduce like that. It's not like the way, period, end of conversation, end of consideration. Such a mind-opening kind of engagement that distinction gave me and can give so many others. Yeah, like that.
So let me ask you, are there, while we're still talking about distinctions and using the distinctions as tools, are there any examples from your life or from your work that you can think of where using the distinctions made a difference in a specific circumstance? And if so, what was the circumstance and how did the tool make the difference?
It make a difference in my life every single day, literally. Like literally. Because the distinctions have you, first of all, to notice. I can't emphasize that. That might sound like a small thing like this, even like, oh my goodness.
So give us one from yesterday or today, an actual circumstance.
I want to give you something deep and profound. Hold on a minute.
Okay.
No, that's right. I know that's right.
You know what I mean? Let me see if I can think of something recently or even historically.
While you're doing that,
okay, go ahead.
while you're doing that, I'll say that the no right way to be, I'm looking to see if there's a specific circumstance. I will say I have used no right way to be in my work with the summit, right? In terms of working with people and outside of the summit, working with teams, working with other people, with my siblings, where somebody reacts in a way that's not how I would react,
Sure.
or someone sees a direction that's not the direction that I would go in. And recently actually working with contractors on a rental house that my parents own with my siblings, and the contractors having a different view of everything than I would have had, and giving space. Like, no right way to be is like, okay, their way of being is different. It's not wrong.
Right.
It's just different. And so not coming from wrong, not coming from morality, not coming from, but looking at whether or not their way of being is different, and can we find a way that works through both sets of lenses. So it made me more open to engaging with people who were interacting with life from a completely different way. And so actually making that divide crossable.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. You reminded me of so, like, I'm the CEO of the Magnificent Life Digital Learning Center, right? And so every day I'm engaging some aspect of building that learning center. And what you just said in terms of dealing with, vendors, consultants, what have you, that happens all the time. But actually establishing the complex, the decision to establish the complex, had everything to do with the fact that I had these tools. It's almost like, so this is a business, it's a for-profit business, not nonprofit. We're gonna make some money. We're making a little bit, but we're gonna make some money. I think that's what Black folks born to do, would do. That's another conversation. And so the distinctions and the tools are for me the stepping stones for the business building, because it requires me to be to bring myself in a particular way every day, right? And so I have, for instance, I'm bringing on 2 people, right? And the process of looking for a person who's going to be writing copy and some other things for me required me to, put the word out, engage a lot of different people, get a lot of no's, get a lot of, people who did not respond, get a lot of people, for instance, who were like, how much you paying? I'm like, are you interested? Because if you're not interested, I don't know that we're gonna have that conversation.
Exactly.
And so it was, and that was pushed back. And so this is like all the time. I learned through the summit that every no, every pushback is a step towards your goal, a step to realizing your vision. And so if I had to say in one space and examples that I could give you, it's from really building my business. Yeah.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Thank you. So I think I'd like for us to move into your experience as a facilitator specifically. We've talked about your introduction to the summit, your first meeting, your first annual summit event.
Mhm.
Did you came to that first meeting already deciding that you were going to become a facilitator
Yes, ma'am.
for the annual summit event?
Ma'am.
And so what has because I know that you've been pivotal as a facilitator and as the team leader for the creation of the structured facilitator training process. So what has your experience as a facilitator been like? What and what has been underlying that ongoing commitment?
When I came into this space, like I said, I had not seen the 5 principal facilitators actually lead an annual summit event. I was sold just on understanding that there were some skills, interactions that were going to uplift Black folks. Count me in. Once I saw that the level of skill, the level of knowledge, the level of skill that was brought forth through those facilitators, it then became for me a very personal self-development quest to like, I got to have some of that. I got to have whatever that is, whatever I got to read, whatever seminars, whatever trainings, whatever lectures, whatever practicums, I'm gonna learn this, okay? Because this is for me and my people. And so that's what it became for me, a matter of becoming a facilitator so that I could exact the kind of outcomes that I saw others exacting from engaged participation. And what it was a very natural kind of evolution, if you will, for me to ultimately lead the development of the structured facilitator training process, because I'm trained as an educator, right? Like formally trained as an educator. So I'm watching this all along from my first engagement. I'm watching. As an educator, I am trained. I don't know if they still train folks like that now, but I'm trained to wait for how can I get in with this child? Because it's my responsibility to get it in. It's not the child's responsibility or the learner's responsibility to get it from me. I got to get it in. I'm looking, I'm listening, right? And so when I'm in this space, I'm looking and I'm listening for how these people doing this stuff. This is magical, right? and the other thing that threw me is like every facilitator has a different way of doing it, right? So it's not like a strict recipe you can follow, right? Because I tell you that Anthony, oh, he's very different from Perry. Okay, all right. And so I'm watching and I'm like, more and more, the more frequently I came, the longer I was able to observe, the more I could see, oh, there's some patterns here. There are some patterns that are replicable. We can garner them, we can codify them, and we can teach others in a structured way, right? Because there is much to be gained from structure. There's much to be gained from nonlinear, right? Some things you don't want structure, some things you do. When you have them both, you got the best of both worlds. And so I began, wanting to capture this because this is golden. It is gold. It was then, it still is. This is a knowledge base that transforms anybody, that is particularly suited for Black folks. This works with anybody though, right? And I'm like, well, I would go to the weekend training and I'm like, okay, well, what we doing? What we doing? And sometimes I would get, did you get it? Oh, well, you got to try harder. You got to do it differently. I'm like, what was the getting? Right. And so I wanted it to be in such a way that those who wanted it, it could be captured with some level of regularity. And that those who are giving it can readily see the gems that are being dispensed through their facilitation. So as a facilitator, wow. First of all, y'all just got to making me confess all my my unspoken. When I came to the body, there were levels. There was trainee, there was this, there was training, and then there was senior facilitator. Well, the way I roll, trainee.
When you first joined as a trainee.
What is that? No trainee. That's grown children. I'm like, and so I would always declare myself as a senior facilitator of my life, right? Of my life. And I held it that way. I held it like that, which meant I put the responsibility for acquiring this skill on me. It wasn't anybody else's responsibility. And the way I wanted it to manifest was in my life, right? I wasn't showcasing for anybody else. And I ain't say nothing, you don't tell all your stuff. And so I've held it like that. And so when I'm in the facilitator body, that is what, first of all, it's a responsibility that I have. I can't facilitate others before I facilitate myself.
Right.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
I can't suggest that you take a particular pathway if I haven't actually done same or similarly. And so as a facilitator, first of all, I think it's a very high honor. It is one that is life-giving and life-saving. And I quite frankly would love to see more people join the facilitator body with the express responsibility and accountability to learn and to actually become very skilled in that. And so that enlivens me, because it occurs to me like the declaration says, like the facilitator's commitment says, we take the conversation outward. And so how we take it out will determine exactly how it's reflected in the world and how many others will be actually engaged in transforming the universe.
So Mwangaza, one of the things that comes to mind is, what would you say is one of your maybe most memorable facilitating experiences?
Where I facilitated or when someone else facilitated?
When you facilitated, what was your experience? Or maybe you received something from facilitation. That's a possible. But I want to start with you as a facilitator. What was your, what would you say is one of your moments that you connected with the opportunity and possibility that facilitating for the International Black Summit is and was?
In Belize.
Okay.
I'll always remember this. I can't remember the details. I believe it was a woman. And there was a conversation about what was needed, right? And why this conversation had come forward. It had something to do with our history. And it was something very much related to a particular historical deity that I love, right? And for me, it occurred like a God moment, like because I was able to provide this information. It was about Mbuya Nahanda. She's a deity, a national deified ancestor of Zimbabwe. And I was able to literally put pieces together in that conversation that made whatever it was make sense for this person. So that was one that I will always remember, because I sat there with my mouth open for about 2 minutes before I even jumped in and said anything, because I was so stunned. But again, listening spirit, I'm like, oh, this is about Mbuya Nahanda. I can't remember the details, and I apologize for that. But bringing Mbuya Nahanda and telling the history of Mbuya Nahanda and how she had facilitated the first Chimurenga, the first war, and the second Chimurenga, the war when Zimbabwe received its independence. It occurred to me that it was received as pivotal to this person in that conversation. Yeah.
And then flip it. What would you say was one of those moments when you received facilitation and were opened up immensely by it?
I have to tell you, it wasn't me directly, but because, as you know, people come to the mic, and through other people's lives, you get your life. And so it was through other people's lives. I remember one time there was a gentleman who Anthony was working with, and the gentleman was talking about what he wanted for himself. And because I didn't know this at the time, but facilitators had history. They knew that some of what was being said was not the full story. And the way that they just carefully tracked for him his history, I don't know if he remembered or not, but they were causing memory. Mm-hmm. And it was the tracking and being trained as a historian. I'm like, that's when I was like, oh my God, because history brings you to your present. Mm-hmm. Nothing just happens. When you can track that past, link the common thread, you got remedy. And so it was like, for me, it was like, this is the same thing we do with history. You can talk about, write about, interpret any historical event as you like, as long as you have the evidence. You have no evidence, don't say it, right? Can't say it, not credible. And the facilitator was doing exactly the same thing. They were like, well, why you say that? What, looking for the evidence. And I heard it in that way that was like, she's a Wisa. Oh my God. These folks are tracking and packing and making some things happen up in here because you're trained to track.
Right.
Back, put it together, to make it make sense, to hear what the person is saying, hear what they're not saying, right? It's like if I'm in the archives, I'm trying to track a historical whatever, I'm in the archives, I see what's written, but I have to also leave room for what's not in the archive, right? And look for it. And it was the same kind of process. I was saying, this is golden. And it makes the outcome so credible, because it's not like you making up stuff along the way. It's based on actual occurrences that people get. It's like you have a aerial view and you get to show them. You on the ground, you don't see all that I see. Come up here with me and let's take an aerial view. Now, can you see why you got this outcome? All right. And can you also see where you can take a different action in the future to get a different outcome? And it becomes clear as day, just clear as day, like magic. So like that.
Well, folks, I hope you're listening, because that was an example of our distinction tracking. So that's one of the things that we use as part of the tools to have myself or someone else be present, be right there in the conversation, so that they can listen for the opportunity and possibility that they may have overlooked in their life that now is showing up inside of the work that we do inside of the International Black Summit through the facilitation and listening the space. Excellent. Excellent, Mwangaza. Thank you.
Ooh, absolutely. There's no separation. I have to say this.
Yeah.
I mean, there's no, it's not like the tools, International Black, it's not like, then it's like when you get this, it's like, it's like singing and dancing. Oh my God, you gonna hear the song and not dance? What's up with that? It's like they're related,
Yeah.
right? You know, and so the wonderful thing about being a facilitator of the International Black Summit is that you get to use all of it on behalf of your uplift, on behalf of our uplift. And it makes you want to stretch, because for what other reason might you be inspired? Yeah. Be excited. Just listen about it. And we play music at the summit.
We sure do. And we dance.
What? Because we Black.
And the music is facilitated. We don't just play random songs. We have a facilitator facilitating the music.
That's right. I want to thank you for letting me be myself. Again. Come on, Sly. Don't make me strike a tune up in here. Because that's who we are. That's what we bring. And it's so valuable. It's not just like, you know, hanging out and doing nothing. This is of value. I mean, we know how many lives are saved through song and through music. Come on. And we invite that. Yeah, we invite that. Right? We know how much is saved when you remember what your grandmama did, that ancestral reverence. Right? Everybody don't do that. Some people think when they dead, they gone. Well, maybe some people are. Maybe some people are not. Okay. But if you understand who you are, and if you're celebrating who you are, you see, part of the reason I say that there's an International Black Summit and why people are attracted is because we often hear conversations about what we are not and how we are not enough. I mean, if you live in this world, you're going to hear it if you're Black, right? At some point or the other. And so that kind of toxic orientation must be addressed, right? Because you don't want to walk around with one arm tied behind your back and you're trying to figure out why you can't get it right. And it's something, you know, that's been given to you over and over in so many different ways. We're not even gonna talk about that, but it's there, right? And so when we sing and when we dance and when we pray and when we call forth spirit consciously, not like as a we will accommodate it, but no, it is essential. Bring forth. When we can bring all of ourselves into the facilitation process, that is in and of itself is a way in which we acknowledge and celebrate who we are as we are. Like nothing's better than that. And I do mean nothing. Come on and get yours.
You know, as you're speaking, the music, the dance, the joy, the expression, you know, the International Black Summit for me has been one of the first spaces, perhaps the only spaces so far, but certainly first spaces where I experienced joyous productivity.
There you go.
You know, where you know, my background was that you went to work and it was serious, and I had a corporate background, right? So you go to the corporate office and you have your office and you speak to your secretary and you get things done and deadlines and all of the kind of stuff, and then the firm would have a cocktail hour and you were supposed to be at the cocktail hour and now have fun because you're at the cocktail hour, as opposed to our spaces where the meetings can be joyous.
Yeah, we
can be having fun and getting stuff done.
Absolutely.
And I think that that's also, for me, I say that that's part of African expression. You know, that we dance and we sing and we get stuff done, and we don't have to separate those things out. You know, it's not like work has to be dry and no fun.
Because when you think about it, what is greater to celebrate than you exerting effort to help yourself or somebody in your community. And let's celebrate that right there. And that's work. There's
Mhm.
nothing, it's like we have been oriented in particular ways through a different cultural lens that is ours. And so when we find ourselves looking at that which there's nothing to do but celebrate and run into and embrace, hold your arms open for, we are taught to run away from it. And what you just spoke to is like working for yourself. What? Do for self? That's a party, right? That's a t-shirt. That's a let's make that happen. That's a movement. What would happen if we ran to each other and worked for ourselves? Y'all better stop making church come up in here on a Sunday night. Game is over. Game is over. We having all this conversation about this upcoming election. Just imagine. This is the way I look at this. This is an example of using the tools of International Black Summit. You trying to suppress and make it difficult for me and mine to vote? Oh, that's so wonderful. It's almost like saying, oh, you gonna make us have to run 10 miles instead of 5 to get across the line? Well, guess who working out every morning?
Mm-hmm.
Guess who, I'm stretching. Oh my, guess who buying new shoes? Okay. Guess who gonna form a track team? Guess who gonna, okay, I'm prepared. A matter of fact, I have never hurdled in my life. I'm gonna do some hurdles. Just cause guess what? If you say 10, I'm gonna be prepared to do 20. That's how I'm built. And the thing is, we've had to do that anyway. Right?
Yeah.
Folks running 10, 5 or 10 or 3, whatever you running on flat land can't do nothing with folks who running on an incline, and we are born on the incline. So we got it in us already. We demonstrated in so many ways. So let us change this whole voting conversation around. It don't matter what other people do. What the only thing that matters is what I do.
Mm-hmm.
I thought, what? Don't tell me what Black folks can't do. Why? Because we've done it. We've done the impossible.
And consistently.
Over and over again, we persevere. How high you gonna raise that gate? How high? Have you ever seen us climb palm trees? Because we can get up that thing, okay?
Palm trees, coconut trees, whatever, right?
Okay, so we just need to have some palm tree climbing training going on. That's all. We just need to have them aunties making that macaroni and cheese and frying that fish and saying, baby, I know nephews, you ain't never voted before. And you got reasons. You got reasons that may be good. But this time, I need all 10 of y'all to go down there. I need you to be there when before the place open, just like you at the Apple store when that new product come out. And I need you to sit on that ground at 4 a.m., 3 a.m., 2, whatever you gotta do. Okay? Bring your folding chair because we're gonna get this done. That's the conversations we need to be having. And with the tools of the International Black Summit, those are the conversations and the abilities that you give yourself. So you just like, okay, what's required? That's all. All right, cool. I got 2 more months to prepare. Oh, it's a wrap. Bring it.
It's perfect that you're talking about doing the work, because one of the things that has us go from one annual meeting to the next is actually either a question or an inquiry that we engage in. And so we have these tools, we have the declaration, but we also have this particular engagement that we engage for that year to inquire into, to self-reflective ourselves inside of that, the context of that question or inquiry that we have for that particular year. Are there any ones that jump out at you that were like, oh my goodness, this one was one of the ones that just, took me out into orbit? Do you have any of those?
two jump out. The first one is I am enough.
Okay. Okay.
I am enough. Yes, I remember. Yes.
Okay. Because as an educator, facilitator, I have often discovered that in the background,
Mhm.
undistinguished when working with people. That was big. Now, it's funny you ask about what's jumped out for me, because can I tell you, I'm jumping up and down for the 2022-23. Oh, this is one of the most powerful ones that I've seen and that has resonated like this with me in quite a while. As I become present to I am. That
Mhm.
I am, I just described Black people. I am. When I become present to that, what is it to rest in the I amness? Oh, game over. Y'all better drop them balloons and pop that confetti. Okay. When I become present to who I am, see, that's been my life through our history. We don't know. We don't know. We don't know how great we are. Not like a nice song or declaration. I'm saying that tracking we just spoke about, if
Mhm.
we were to track our collective diasporan history, our history on the continent, you would be popping your collar 24/7, 360. Nobody could tell you what you ain't, because you'd be looking at them like, with pity. What we have achieved, what we have done, what we have created, who we have been, what we have withstood, what we have caused in the world is extraordinary. It's unparalleled. Okay. So that's the first part of this year's inquiry. As I become present to who I am, what is it to rest in the I amness? Lord have mercy. That's putting that Black seed in that Black dirt. Okay.
And watering it. And watering it, right?
And it just being magnified.
Mhm.
When you understand all that we are, and you put it into that water, oh my God. Talk about unpredictable results. So that's how and everybody will hear it differently, right? It's inquiry. That's how I happen to hear it, because I am very grounded in our historical memory, in our historical identity. People telling you don't it's in the past. Them some lies from let me tell y'all something. We got to be very careful with some of this modern day talk, okay? When people say, don't look back, don't look wherever you get your power, okay? Up, down, right, left, east, west. And there's much power that has actually been denied intentionally, like hide that thing around the rock so you won't look back and see it. And I'm here to tell you, because I'm rooted in that historical memory, like let's remember, let's put all of ourselves back together and see ourselves fully for who we are. When you get present to that, game over. So yeah, I could go on and on, but this.
I actually have an interesting question for you, just inside of your conversation as a historian. When I look back for myself as a member of the African diaspora and a descendant of enslaved Africans, and I look at that history, and for me, I look at my family history in particular.
Okay.
And for me, I look at the generations that have gone before. My sister's done the family tree. And I see a relay race. Like I see a relay race generation passing the baton to the next generation. Each generation having their purpose, the thing that they had to carry for that generation, passing it on to the next generation moving forward. And I look at that past and I see how each generation has built on the generation that came before, and is built on the generation that came before. And I see where our family line is now as we go to the next generation. I attended a baby shower today, as we move to the next generation. I'm like, this next generation and their kids, as far as I'm concerned, we are laying the foundation for them to fly. Like previous generations in my history, they did some hard work. They did hard work in love for their future generations. They withstood all kinds of things in love, out of love for the future generations that they were standing for. Last week, I'll say this briefly, last week we did a session on work, and I left that session last week with a new definition of love for myself, of work for myself. And my new definition of work is love in action.
Oh, no, come on.
And so each of these generations did what they needed to do and have passed the baton. And as far as I'm concerned, this generation is building so that these next, and I don't mean far in the future, I mean these next generations that are coming now, building a foundation for them to fly. So my question for you as a historian is, when you look at the history, what do you see, what's the future you see this history creating?
Oh, it's that, for me, that is a question that's like, when you look at a bank account and you have more money than you can count, billions of trillions, what will you do with it, right? So the first and most important consideration is for us to know that we already have it. We have what is needed, right? We have the lessons from our history. We have the examples, the demonstrations. We know that we really are manifestations of dreams and prayers and love of people who have never seen us. And so what there is to do, Jackie, is to unlock that treasure trove, because it will do its own work unto us. It will transform who we see when we look in the mirror. It will allow us to know who we are beyond the word, in addition to the concrete kinds of lessons that it will teach us. And so for our children coming forward, the key thing is they must know it. They must be immersed in it. They must become intimately familiar with the people and the processes that cause them to be. And then they can better connect with that thing, as opposed to it being something, aloof, a good theoretical idea, what have you, but make it really, really plain in that kind of way. I like to have young people like look through a pantheon of ancestors, learn about them, and then choose your partner. Those kinds of exercises, because depending on what a child's, a young person, or old person's passion is or inclination, there are so many great people that if we put them in front of people, they're gonna choose. They go, oh, that's my dude right there. That what he did, what she did. Fannie Lou Hamer. Oh my God. Kwame Ture, Osagie for Kwame and Nkrumah. Nanny of the Maroons. Take your pick, right? Take your pick, because there's all kinds of ways in which we built, no matter what. And so becoming intimately familiar is what I would say is key to having our young people forge the kind of future that's consistent and elevates, moves forward our historical continuum like that. And I have to tell you, you said something very important. I just want to touch on. You said your definition for work was love in action. I have to tell you guys, December 1st, I'm dropping a digital course called More Black Self-Love. And it pivots on exactly what you're pointing to, Jackie, on how when you love yourself, like really, because let's say we walking down the street and we just gonna ask, you love your Black self. Everybody gonna say, of course. Oh, but yeah. But then when you say, well, how you treating your Black? How's he doing today? What you doing? What did you do? So the course will allow participants to actually attach self-love to an action like that.
Mm.
And there's more I could say. I won't talk so much about it now, but I invite our listeners, if you're listening, if that sounds like something of interest, like you want to cultivate more Black self-love for yourself, for the people that you love, there's a process that is being completed now, a learning process that we're configuring now that will launch December 1. And I invite you to go to blacknificentlife.com and sign up. You'll automatically get a newsletter. That's another thing that you gotta want. That's one of those streams of Black deliciousness that you want in your life. So sign
Why
up.
don't you spell that out? Spell out that website for us.
Magnificent, Black, BLACK. That's a capital B, by the way. Nificent, NIFICENT. Like magnificent, but it's Black, NIFICENT, and then life, blacknificentlife.com.
Thank you.
You know, it's your birthright to live a Blacknificent life. I'm just saying, we help you get there. So yeah, sign on up. Go on over there, sign up. Matter of fact, do it while we on, so you don't forget. Because ain't nobody playing. Ain't nobody got time to be slipping.
Well, we're coming to the end, and we've had some very serious conversations. I wanted to find out if you have any funny stories to share about the International Black Summit.
Funny stories.
Yeah, any funny
Please,
things that have occurred, or
see, I gotta get clearance. Otherwise, I can't come back in the circle. Y'all, listen, y'all not gonna have me this loud and oh Lord, get Susan.
Putting people's
Hey,
business
girl.
out in these streets.
Oren. Oh my God. Funny. I guess, I don't know that this is funny. I really, can I give you a heartwarming story?
Sure.
So I took my 16-year-old nephew to Ghana, and for the summit.
2004.
Yes. And long story short, he had a backpack full of CDs. Okay. And he let some of them other young people know. Okay. 2 or 3 days in, they stole his CDs. Because I mean, this is fresh stuff from the US. Okay.
Right.
They stole out of his bag. Okay. Left the bag, took the CDs. So, because we have relationships, and because you're in Ghana, you inside a culture where this ain't America, things are done differently. It was made known that somebody took, it was about 12 or 13 CDs. And what happened? They got them CDs back. Them boys found whoever, whatever. We didn't get privy to all of it, but they were like, oh no, we cannot let this happen. And he got every one of them CDs back. So that's a heartwarming story I can say about what happens inside of a cultural context where we obey the laws of the culture, which is like back to Ubuntu. I am, we are, Ujamaa, listen, I am because, right, you took that from her, you took it from me, give it up.
Yeah.
Like that.
Well,
that's other than funny, you're gonna have to get Kat and Susan and Oren and them up in here because I can't.
Yeah, you gotta keep that under the lid. Well, but I do want to underline that we have a youth summit, which operates from 7 or 8 to 17. So that's the youth summit age group. And then we have the young adult space, which is from 18 to 35. And then we have the adult space. And so when we talk about this annual summit event, all three are taking place simultaneously. So one of the beauties of this conversation is that even though we've got 3 separate groups, the same conversations evolve. And at the end of the 3rd day, on that Sunday, when it's closing time, we've had the exact same conversations in all 3 spaces. The other thing I want to say is that these spaces are sacred, that they're confidential. So things that are said in the space stay in the space. So you have an opportunity to really speak yourself, speak your concerns, your considerations, any kind of trauma that you took place. You have a safe space to express that and really get out whatever is there that's holding you back, that maybe you haven't said to anybody on the planet. But we provide you that opportunity, that space to be able to say those things. And so the summit is a conversation, and it's also an event. And so the events look like the annual summit event. We have a prerequisite. We have a community event that we're going to be offering to the public that we've put in place. So we've got these events, and we've got the leadership meetings, leadership body meetings, so that once you've participated in the annual summit event, you then can come and participate and be part of the decision-making process in terms of where the organization is going and what it's about. So it's a great opportunity for several different spaces for you to invite your friends, your family into, so that they can be part of it. Because how do I know that you're doing well? I ask the people around you. And if they're doing well, then you're doing well. So it really is about community. The last thing I want to inject into this conversation is that the International Black Summit is about you creating a vision for yourself. The vision is one of the contexts that we create for ourselves so that we can live into. So our purpose then becomes inside of that vision, and our action is consistent with that vision. And we use the tools and the skills and the facilitation that occurs inside of the summit to kind of keep us grounded, to keep us focused, and to keep us present to what that vision is and the fulfillment of that for ourselves, for the Black community, and for the world. So, Mwangaza, what would you like to say to complete this extravaganza of conversations and just love fest that has taken place tonight?
First, I want to just thank both of you, Glenn and Grace. You guys didn't have to do this. If you're watching this, please know, ain't nobody getting paid, okay? Okay? This is exactly what Jackie Grace talked about earlier. This is a manifestation of love. So thank you both for putting in the work, the hours, the time, the attention, for creating this space so that more people can engage, be introduced to, get a slice of this goodness in the world. I want to thank both of you, for myself and for the many people who are seeing this, participating in this, and those who will see it. So thank you for that. That's the first thing I want to say. And then I just want to impress upon viewers, listeners, listen, lean in, because I need this to be heard. This is a goodness you can't afford not to partake of, okay? If you've been wanting more in your life, I'm talking to people of African descent specifically, but this magic works for everybody. You Black folks been wanting more for your life. You've been praying for more. You've been crying for more. You've been moaning. You've been singing them blues songs. You've been rapping to them lyrics, okay, about wanting more. Get up off of that and come and participate in the International Black Summit, okay? Get your life. Get your life. You are more than enough. You have everything you need. And this is a sacred space, a divine opportunity for you to actually walk the steps where you can get your hands around it, your mind around it, your arms around it, and your heart around it in a loving environment. So we're going to be looking for you. Just because you got them video cameras off, just because we don't know your name don't mean we don't know. We're going to be looking for you, expecting you, saving your space, because that's how we do. We listen to spirit. So come on up in here. And then lastly, I just want to say, you're making our ancestors proud. Thank you for showing up exactly as you have. The two of you as hosts, our audience, and our audience to come. It's an absolute pleasure to spend this time with you. And I am very, very grateful.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Mwangaza. Thank you. And thank everyone who's being with us this evening. Thank you for joining us. And we hope that you'll join us next time. Good night.
Good night.
Good night and God bless.